Welcome to the Purple Elephant Show. I am your host, KC Phoenix, and this particular episode, we will be talking about China, the United States, and revolution. So, I'm going to be looking down at my notes here. For those of you who follow the show on Instagram, you probably know that I posted my notes back on Wednesday, so I'll be looking down and doing all that other stuff. There are a few housekeeping things to get out of the way for this show. First thing is, of course, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all of that other stuff. Also, for those who don't want to deal with politics on certain days, I have a second channel, which is Keeping It Real with KC. I don't discuss politics at all on that channel. You can go there. It's the same thing with the Anchor Podcast, KIRWKC, or you can just type it in the actual website, KIRWKC.com, and that'll take you to the Anchor Podcast page. And just to let you know, the episode that I'm going to be working on for that one coming soon is Should You Sleep with Someone Who's Married? So I think that will be an interesting episode, to say the least. As for this episode today for the Purple Elephant Show, we'll be discussing the China, United States, and revolution stuff. Another housekeeping thing that I have to get out of the way is these particular socks. So I got to hold these up here. Of course, it's showing backwards or whatever on film, but it's American made socks. It's by socks.co, if I'm not mistaken, or sock.co, one of the two. But you can find them on Amazon. You can type in American made socks and pull it up. I bought these. These were a pack of 12 for like $20. So it's not expensive at all. And they did not pay me to do this. I have no affiliation with this company whatsoever. This is just something that I did. And by the way, this isn't a quote unquote premium sock. It's just more of a what I call a lounge sock, something to wear around the house and to be comfortable in. You can wear them outside or whatever. They're like 80% cotton, 20% nylon, I think. And so far, I've enjoyed them. I haven't had any issues out of them. And, $20 for 12, that's a pretty good deal. So just wanted to throw that out there with the American-made socks. Also, there is another one. If you haven't noticed for these shows, I'm going to be wearing T-shirts pretty much all of the time. I just don't feel like going through trying to pick stuff out. I like to keep things simple if I can. So, yeah, I have this T-shirt, which is a Next Level, and I think I just hit my camera, but whatever. It's Next Level America. They are also at blankapparel.com. For Next Level Apparel, this is a T-shirt that is made in America. These T-shirts are only about $8 or $9 and some change on Amazon. This is actually a very good T-shirt. At the actual website outside of Amazon, you can get them a little bit cheaper. You just pay for the T-shirt and the shipping. But when you type in the T-shirt, they do have imported T-shirts. But if you want a T-shirt that is made in America, then just go ahead and make sure that you put men's made in USA cotton T-shirt, and that'll bring up the actual made in America T-shirt and not the imported one that they have. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So, and I'm not affiliated with this company either. They didn't pay me to do this. All my opinions are my own. They're what I say has nothing to do with that company. They are their own thing. There is no probably to it. They don't even know I exist. I'm just doing this because this stuff was made in America, and I'm sort of on that kick right now, which goes into the story that I want to tell you about. So I was in Ralph's back a week and some change ago, and I had to do some shopping. I had to get some water because That's usually what I buy. I don't go to the grocery stores that much because I don't like to be around a lot of people anyway. But I go usually to get the water because for the people who deliver the grocery to me, I feel bad having them bring large cases of water to me. It's just, yeah, I'm weird like that. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to the grocery store for some water. But while I was in the grocery store, I said, oh, well, let me go ahead and get some aluminum foil. So I went to the aluminum foil section and I was looking at the aluminum foil. It was the generic, I guess you could call it the generic brand or whatever, the non name brand aluminum foil. And I picked it up because I was like, okay, well, the price is good. And something said to me, check where it's made. See where it's made at. So I looked at it, and sure enough, it was made in China. I am not comfortable with stuff that is made in China anymore. If I can avoid it, I will. So I decided to look at some of the other aluminum foil, and then I found the Reynolds wrap aluminum foil, and it was just a little bit more. But I looked at it, and I was looking all over the box because in the back part of it, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I'm like, are they trying to hide the made in China thing on this or what? And I'm just looking. And I'm like, where in the hell is the made at, made in whatever? So I was like, okay, let me just pause for a second and do this slowly. And it was right in front of my face. It was right on the front, and it says made in the USA. So as soon as I saw the made in the USA, I'm like, oh, I'm buying two of those. So that's what I did. Instead of buying one thing of aluminum foil, I actually bought two things of aluminum foil with the Reynolds. So, and they don't know me either. And that's totally cool. So what I am recommending people do is be conscious of what you buy now. It doesn't hurt to take a few seconds just to see where something is made. As for this whole China situation with the China Wuhan virus, over the years, I've tried to give China the benefit of the doubt. I really have. I've tried to give China the benefit of the doubt. I know that governments do questionable things. And that's all governments, whether it's the Chinese government, the American government, the Nigerian government, the French government, it doesn't matter. All governments do questionable things. If there's a lot of things that this government has done where it's been declassified later and people were like, wait, what? So, yeah, just to give a quick example, one time we lost a nuke and didn't tell anybody. So, and I know that for a fact because my uncle used to be one of the top people in nuclear weapons. So he had told me about that. And of course he could tell me because it was declassified, which this happened, it happened many decades ago. They were transporting the nuke on a boat and the nuke rolled off the boat is what had happened. And then they tried to find it, but when they were looking in the water, they searched and they couldn't find the nuke. So they just didn't tell anybody. And later, after it had been determined that the nuke was no longer a threat to anyone, then they declassified it. So, and that's just an example. Another quick example of something that happened that people didn't know about. During World War II, we were attacked on the East Coast. People think of World War II as in Pearl Harbor and everything else, but actually Germany was launching attacks in the water on boats and stuff, trying to affect the shipping and things of that nature up near North Carolina and Virginia and so on. And actually there was a German terrorist group found on US soil and they were captured and killed. That was classified and they declassified it later after it happened. So that's just an example of governments keeping secrets. So I'm not naive. I'm not wearing rose-colored glasses when it comes to the United States government. I know certain things have to be done in order to maintain the republic. I totally get it. As for China, this particular situation is different. What set me off on this with the China Wuhan virus is that it's just the one thing. And I'm not really going to go into, well, is it as deadly as they say it is, or all that stuff. I don't want to get down into the minutia of all of that because everybody has their opinions on all sides. That's not what I'm worried about. That's not my concern. My thing is that with China, what they did was when the China Wuhan virus got out, they suspended flights within the country of China. So they knew they had an issue. They suspended flights within the country of China from Wuhan. But if you were in Wuhan and you wanted to fly to another country in the world, China was totally fine with it. But if you wanted to fly from Wuhan to, let's say, Shanghai or Beijing or wherever, then China was like, no, no flights from Wuhan to any other parts of China. All flights are suspended within China from Wuhan. But from Wuhan going outside of China, China did not suspend the flights. And that is where I have an issue. That, to me, is not gross negligence. That is more of intent to harm, in my eyes. So on that level, that's why I'm not really dealing with China these days. This whole situation has just left a really, 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 really bad taste in my mouth when it comes to China. Because for a country to do that, it lets me know that misery loves company, for sure. Because they didn't want to go through those issues alone. They were like, okay, well, yeah, we'll suspend flights from Wuhan in China, but we'll go ahead and let anyone who's infected go out to the rest of the world because why should we take the hit? We'll let everybody else take the hit and we can all be miserable together, was pretty much the approach. Because other economies were doing fairly well, especially the United States economy. It's been one of the best economies ever. I'm not going to say what President Trump says, that it is the best economy ever. There are certain things where there were more people working than ever in history, but then you could go down to, well, what was the population back then and other things and yada, 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 and all that stuff. And that's not a dig at President Trump because I'm cool with President Trump. I voted for him before, I'll vote for him again. I'm just saying that during this particular administration, yes, the United States has had one of the best economies ever. With this misery loves company thing, that's where I feel they could have done something a little different. If instead of dragging everybody down with them from a PR standpoint, I think China would have been better off, and this is from a political lens speaking, I think they would have been better off pulling at people's heartstrings and showing, instead of letting the virus get out, keep the virus all in China and then let the world know. Now, one thing about the Chinese, when it comes to Communist Chinese Party, they're very proud people and they don't like to show weakness. But in this particular situation, it would have been more to their advantage to, I don't want to say fake weakness, but to let people feel sorry for them, where they put it out into the world, because the world is very generous. When natural disasters happen, when catastrophe happens, the world usually steps up and does everything it can and donates money and all types of things to help out whatever that natural disaster is, especially the United States. The United States, if I'm not mistaken, is the most charitable nation in the world when it comes to donations. And as we should be, because the United States is the, I say this loosely, the richest country in the world. Because if you look at the debt we currently carry, then you could, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, as we should be charitable. So I just feel from a political point of view, from a PR point of view, China could have played it differently and made off better by having people feel sorry for them while building their, I guess you could say, war chest or what have you on the side during that process. Because some people already look at the Chinese government with a little bit of a side eye, where it's like, okay, the Chinese government can't be trusted. But if the Chinese government would have presented themselves as, hey, we're going through this, we're having a hard time, I think it would have let those people who were hesitant to deal with the Chinese government kind of let their guard down. So from a political point and a PR point, I think that they could have played it better than saying, okay, well, misery loves company. We're just going to drag everybody in with us and then take it from there. That's just my opinion. As for where we're at now with things with China, and I'm looking down at my notes. This particular situation has brought a lot of things to light on how dependent we are on China, which puts us in a very bad situation. I'm sure some of you know that 90% of our antibiotics, or let me rephrase, 90% of the ingredients that go into our antibiotics are made in China. And the question is, how did we get to that point? The Chinese government even said, when we were saying, hey, the virus came from China, it came from Wuhan, and everything else, when the United States government was calling them out at the beginning, China had even threatened, which it was more saber rattling than anything else, but they had threatened to say, hey, well, if you don't stop saying that, we're going to cut off your supply of ingredients for your antibiotics, which they could do if they really wanted to. It's not recommended because that would create a whole domino effect with other things, but yes, they could do that. Another thing about China that people are not aware of is that with certain minerals and resources, China owns about 2/3 of certain minerals and resources. The minerals and resources that make the chips that go in phones and satellites and all types of stuff, a lot of that is controlled by the Chinese government. It's manufactured and owned in China with those minerals and resources. That has happened over time. A lot of companies have been, and outside of that, a lot of companies have been intertwined and coupled with China. Of course, under the idea that, okay, if two countries are coupled together, then it's less likely that they'll go to war because it would damage both parties. On one end, there's a little bit of truth in that. On the other end, the reason that it has reached the level that it has reached with China is because sadly we have people in our government that are political prostitutes. And that's not a dig at prostitutes, because as for where I politically lean, yeah, I'm a registered Republican, but I'm more of a libertarian, former Democrat. My thing is, if you do what you do, and as long as you're not hurting anybody, I have no issue whatsoever. When it comes to, so like I said, that wasn't a dig at prostitutes. And the thing about a prostitute is that for that situation, only one person gets screwed. With a political prostitute, millions and millions of people get screwed because that person was able to be bought and paid for. So we have these political prostitutes in our government that are bought by the Chinese government, whether it be Joe Biden's son or whoever. There are lots of backroom deals that happen with people who deal with China. And I'm not talking about just people in the House or people in the Senate. I'm just talking about people in general in government who are lobbying on behalf of China when they should think about, okay, well, is this really good for the United States in the long term? And that's what I really feel that people don't get, is when it comes to China, they play a long game where these political prostitutes within our government, they're playing checkers and China is playing chess. They're thinking of, a year or two down the line. China is thinking decades down the line. And what they have done, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name. His name isn't coming to me right now. He was on Lou Dobbs' show. It wasn't Gordon Chang. It was another gentleman. I think his last name was Pillsbury, if I'm not mistaken. And he explained it perfectly, how China will pay someone off to look the other way. But then, while that person is looking the other way, China is stacking up their war chest. They're building up their war chest. They're doing what needs to be done to build up their government. And as decades go by, as has happened, they have built it up so much where they're getting to a point they're not going to have to pay anybody to look the other way. It's just like they will have the military strength, they will have the economic strength, they will have all the strength they need to not pay anybody anymore because they played the long game. They're like, okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and pay these people to look the other way for years and years and years and years, and they won't even think about us trying building up things on our side in the process. That's how I see it. And sadly, because we have those political prostitutes within our government, that will be the case for a while. It amazes me that people don't put the country first. I hope after this incident that they will continue to do so. The sad thing about this incident, and I already see that I'm at 23 minutes. Just on a side note, I don't like doing long shows because me personally, I have a very short attention span. But for this, I knew that this was going to be a little bit longer than usual because I had to get a lot of things off my chest. So, just bear with me on this. If you're listening or watching or whatever, just bear with me. I'm halfway through. With this particular incident, the thing that really sticks in my mind is that this was a dry run and a blueprint for terrorism. That's what this was. And I'm not trying to carry the torch of hysteria here. The media seems to be doing a great enough job of carrying the torch of hysteria. I'm not trying to do that. I'm being a realist and I'm breaking things down critically for myself in my head. And when I ask myself on a strategic level, because you have to be aware of your enemies. Iran, for example, which is also friends with China. Well, I won't say friends. I'll say associates, because there are no friends when it comes to dealing with countries who are also associates of China. They are known to be one of the top sponsors, if not the top sponsor of terrorism. So with Iran, Iran has made it clear they have a problem with the United States. If I were the head of Iran, I would be sitting back and watching all of this that is going on, all of the stuff that's going on in the media, and all of this hysteria that's happening in the United States. And I would say to my team, if I was the head of Iran, why the hell are we trying to build a nuclear weapon? This is the blueprint right here. Because I would go to a bioweapons lab and say, give me something that is just as contagious, if not more contagious and more deadly than the China Wuhan virus, but also make sure that you have the antidote ready so we can cure our people within our country and do that. That's just my thinking for someone who is called America the Great Saint. The entire country was shut down because nobody knew what was going on. No one could come to an understanding as to what was being dealt with. And now the economy itself is breaking because everything has been shut down. Yeah, we're reopening, but lots of stuff has happened with the supply chain because nothing appears by chance when it comes to grocery stores and what have you. There have been a lot of farmers have been doing videos on YouTube and speaking other places talking about how they've had to euthanize a lot of their stock because they can't get their stock to the processing plants because the processing plants have been closed, which of course would affect the food supply. And there are other things that come into play as well. I feel like people don't realize that stuff doesn't just happen on its own. It takes people to maintain things. And the economy has been in the process of breaking. I disagree with President Trump on things should be back to normal by January because more than likely by September, October, there's going to be another whip up of hysteria that's going to happen again. It wouldn't surprise me. And then what's going to happen? So, but to what I was talking about earlier, people need to keep in mind everything that's happened and really analyze it and determine how we want to move forward. Because I honestly believe this, and I'm a pretty intuitive person, and I'm not saying that to brag or anything like that. I'm just letting you know I'm usually right more times than not. I just am. It is what it is. I honestly believe this was a dry run and a blueprint for terrorism. And the United States is going to have to make a decision as to what's going to happen. The media will have to make a decision as to how they're going to cover something like this in the future. Will they add more context? Because one thing that has annoyed me throughout this entire process was when the swine flu had happened, the media didn't have this type of energy. Right? Every time somebody dies from the China Wuhan virus complications and things of that nature, they start putting the death count up. Anytime someone's infected, they put the infection rate up. Right now, I think I haven't even checked it because I sort of tuned that out. But last time I think it was at about 3 million worldwide. 3 million. M is in Mary. With the swine flu, when it happened, over 1.5 billion, B as in boy, were infected with the swine flu when it happened. Within the United States, over 40 million, M as in Mary, over 40 million people within the United States were infected with swine flu. About 300,000 ended up in the hospital. And the death for that, I think, was around 15 or 16. You can obviously look it up, go to duckduckgo.com, and you can, pull the information there and do a search. But it's just amazing that the media didn't have the same energy back then the way they have this energy now, is how I'm looking at it. So that's what I feel when it comes to this whole thing, that it's been a blueprint. Because it has been a blueprint and a dry run for terrorism, the world, but specifically the United States, is going to have a revolution. It's going to have to happen. And when I say a revolution, I mean in the sense of we need to go to the next level. We're still living off of the Industrial Revolution, off of the stuff that Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, Tesla, Morgan, and so forth built for this country. We're still, their accomplishments are within the DNA of the United States and a lot of the world. Because with electricity, gasoline, steel, finance, all of this stuff, that was from the Industrial Revolution. And when you have a revolution, you're going to have to drag some people along that may not want to come. John Rockefeller was one of those people, because with John Rockefeller, he made his money off of kerosene. But when Thomas Edison had started doing had created the light bulb, and with the electricity and so forth, John Rockefeller, obviously electricity was competition to kerosene. So they had their little tiff for a moment. And as time went on, obviously electricity went over. Tesla had his own version with the AC versus DC thing of electricity between him and Edison. Tesla ended up winning, but then JP Morgan screwed everybody and bought it and did his thing and turned it from General Edison Electric to General Electric. Long story. Look it up sometime. It's really, really interesting. But my point is that we need a revolution when it comes to technology, and we need a revolution when it comes to medicine. We need to get out of the treatment business. We need to get into the cure business. When it comes to our current setup, and this is just me and my intuition, I feel the world is about 100 to 200 years behind from where it should be. Elon Musk is one of the people who actually gets it. He gets certain things. I don't agree with everything Elon Musk says, but Elon Musk gets it that, hey, we need to evolve to something higher. And I honestly feel that we are 100 to 200 years behind where we should actually be when it comes to technology and medicine. Part of it is capitalism, and another part of it is people have become complacent, where doing just a little bit is enough. Instead of instead of creating something that's only is okay, let me articulate this the right way. Instead of settling for creating something that's only 10% better, people should only settle for creating something that is 100% better. They need to level up 10 times instead of leveling up once, is what the entire world needs to do. When it comes to the capitalism part of curing things, I get it. Rush Limbaugh was talking about on his show that he brought up HIV/AIDS a few times, and he was talking about we still don't have a vaccine for that. And just a little FYI, Dr. Fauci, he was one of the people who received money when the HIV/AIDS pandemic first started to find a vaccine. Obviously, we still don't have a vaccine. President Trump is saying that we'll have one in 10 years. I'd be surprised. From a business point of view, I get it because I am a card-carrying capitalist. Do not misunderstand that. From a business point of view, I do get it. Why have you pay me once to cure you when you can pay me the rest of your life to treat you? From an ethical point of view, I don't get it. I don't understand why companies can't say, you know what, let's do what's right for humanity. I'm not advocating for nationalizing anything. I'm not saying, oh, well, the government needs to take this over or the government needs to do this or whatever. I'm not advocating for that because usually when there's some type of takeover and it goes under one single entity, growth is stunted. I'm talking about people finding a balance between doing what is right from a capitalist point of view and doing right what is from an ethical point of view. You can always have the hybrid. Hybrids are usually the best thing. It's sort of like with Democrats and Republicans, even though personally I feel we need more parties in government, whether new parties need to be created, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But hybrids are usually best because it gives you a little bit of everything. It gives you the best of all worlds. And in this, I feel that the medical industry can find a way to make a lot of money, but also cure people. Because when it comes to innovation in the medical field, if it hasn't evolved, then when we get pandemics like this, which could be, there isn't no could to it. We're on a whole new level. This is where I feel that sort of like a video game where you have the levels where you can do like very easy, regular, hard, very hard. And then sometimes you're like, oh, well, I beat the easy level and or I beat the regular level and the regular level seemed really, really easy to me. I'm just going to skip the hard and go to very hard. And then you do the very hard on the video game. And then you're like, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting this. This is way too hard. Okay, no, let me just switch back. I feel that this has been switched. The playing field has been switched to very hard now. And we don't realize it, and we're not ready. That's what I personally feel. The playing field has been switched to very hard now, and we don't realize it, and we are not ready. And in order to get ready, you have to have a revolution in medicine, and you have to have a revolution in technology. It has to be done. So that part, and I know I was saying something earlier, and I went off to the side with the video game thing, but I'm sure you can take from what I was saying earlier with the video game thing and put it together and be like, okay, I can see where he was going, hopefully. So yeah, I really believe that with the curing and treating, as I said before, from a capitalist point of view, from an ethical point of view, there's that side. The other side is complacency, people being complacent. Another part of that is not being able to see things for what they are, or just overcomplicating things, or taking things where it doesn't need to go. I'll give you an example. Back a long time ago, when I was in high school, in Western Civ class, many decades ago, my Western Civ teacher, shout out to Miss Langston, she asked us a question. I don't recall what the question was, but I think it was about the Roman Empire, or something like that. And by the way, this was a hard class. She was known to be, her and Miss Woodward were the hardest teachers in school, period. But I digress. She asked the question, and she called on me to go to the board and write down my answer. And she called on my classmate, who was also a friend of mine. And, I hope that she's doing well, to go to the board and write down her answer. Me, I wrote down 2 or 3 sentences, if that. And in that class, it's not a regular thing, because for this particular teacher with Miss Langston, if she asked you a question on a test, it had to be 3 paragraphs long. It literally had to be 3 paragraphs long when you answer it, because she wanted the economic, the social, and political implications of whatever it was she was asking about. In each one, the economic, the social, and the political, each one had to be a paragraph long. So you couldn't answer the question without it being less than 3 paragraphs long on her test. And actually our final exam was, I think, 10 or 20 questions or something. So we had paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of stuff for our final exam. But anyways, for this question, I wrote 2 or 3 sentences. For my friend and classmate, she wrote this long thing that, I don't know. So after we finished on the whiteboard, we sat down, and then she took the marker, she went to mine, and then she wrote KISS. And then she went to hers, and she wrote SWAG. And we were looking, and we're like, okay, what? And she said, for mine, she's like, it was very short. She said, keep it simple, stupid. It was straight to the point. It was what it was. For my classmate, the SWAG stood for some wild ass guess, is what it stood for. And the whole class, we all started laughing. I feel like when it comes to some people, not all people, some in medicine, they're all over the place and they're guessing, when really the answer to cure certain things is a lot more simple. Sort of like in one of my favorite movies, Working Girl, with Melanie Griffith, Harrison Ford, and Sigourney Weaver. Which, side note, I've been on set with Sigourney Weaver. I live in Los Angeles, for those who don't know. I've been on set with Sigourney Weaver and seen her in person. She is gorgeous. But anyways, in the movie Working Girl, when Trask was talking about at the end how a truck got stuck in a tunnel, and everybody was trying to figure out how to get the truck out the tunnel, and a father with his little girl were looking at all these people trying to figure out how to get the truck out the tunnel. And then the little girl said, "Why don't you just let the air out the tires?" And that's what solved the issue. It was something so simple as letting the air out of the tires to get the truck unstuck and out the tunnel. That is what I feel happens for some people. And I wouldn't say just in medicine. I'd say in technology, I'd say in other things too, in government. Some things don't have to be as complicated with stuff all over the place as you would think it should be. Some things are just very simple and to the point. And when you can keep things simple and to the point, it's easier to evolve and move on and accomplish the next task, is how I look at it. And as I said before, we're 100 to 200 years behind in technology and medicine. There is no reason why we should not have some form of limited, and I know I'm about to lose some people on this, but trust me, I know what I'm talking about. There is no reason that we should not have some form of limited telekinesis right now. For those of you who study science and stuff, you will get it. It's not as complicated to do as some people may think. And I said limited. I'm not talking about that you just start thinking about something moving and it moves us a little bit deeper than that. There isn't anything invasive that should have to be done to the human body in order to make some form of limited telekinesis happen. It's just people don't think on that level when it comes to technology. They don't think about the brain waves. They don't think about decoding things and connecting it to certain other equipment and stuff of that nature. They're not thinking like that. When it comes to medicine and healing, there is no reason why anybody in this world should be blind. There isn't any reason. There just isn't. I just don't believe that. There isn't any reason in this world why people should be deaf. There isn't. We're 100 to 200 years behind. And we need to catch up because the game has changed and the level is very hard and we are not ready. It's time for the world, and it's time for America to make a decision on what they want to do. Do you want to continue focusing on a quick profit for some? Do you want to continue resting on your laurels of past accomplishments from almost a century ago? Do you want to continue getting stuck in things and overly complicating things that should not be complicated? Or do you want to prepare yourself for the level that you have been forced into? What do you want to do? It's time for people to evolve, and it's time for a revolution. If there isn't one, then everything's going to be lost. I don't know any other way to say it. If there isn't a revolution in technology and medicine, if people don't have the desire to do the impossible, if they lose that drive, in the future, everything will be lost, because you will still be at an average skill level, but playing a very hard game. And that's not where you want to be at. That's not where I want the world at. And for sure, that's not where I want America at. Yes, we have the Space Force. Yay, I'm happy. But until we have actual starships, there is no excuse in the world why we don't have starships and why we're not exploring. There isn't an excuse for it. There just isn't. I remember a story. I forgot who the individual was. He was talking about the iPhone. And I'm not a big Apple person. I actually try to avoid Apple like the plague, even though, they make good products, but it's not my thing. But I remember the gentleman, the glass that goes, I believe it's the Gorilla Glass that goes on the Apple iPhone. That didn't exist at first. The gentleman was talking about it. There's a video somewhere on YouTube. And he was explaining how when Steve Jobs had the demo version of the iPhone, the original glass that was in the iPhone got scraped up really, really bad and all types of other stuff. And it was basically defective. And Steve Jobs said, oh, well, we need a new type of glass. And then the guy was telling him, well, this doesn't exist. And Steve Jobs was like, well, you need to get it done by this date. And the guy was like, we can't get it done by this date. Steve Jobs wouldn't take no for an answer. He wouldn't take no. Steve Jobs was like, well, you're going to find a way. And for those of you who know, I'm sure you've heard the story. Steve Jobs wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Some people aren't like that. Some people are sunshine and rainbows. That's cool. Whatever management style works for you, go for it. Like I said, I like hybrids. I like a little bit of sunshine and rainbows. And then I like, putting the fear of God in people. So have a little bit of both. But with Steve Jobs, he would not take no for an answer. And guess what? They created a new type of glass that later went into the iPhone. The guy got it done because impossible wasn't something that Steve Jobs was willing to accept. It's great to have things easy. It's great to have things given to you. I mean, if something's given to me, hey, I'll take it. I have no issue with that. That can be great. But I feel it's greater to create and give back to the rest of the world. And especially to give back to your country. Everybody has their own specific talents. I'm not telling every single person to go out next week and build a starship. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is find what you're great at and go out and do it so you can bring something beneficial to the world. But if you're an American, especially something that's beneficial to America. Because we don't want to be in a place where things fall completely apart, like they have in some other countries, which I won't name. You know those countries, if you follow the news, you've seen those countries. I'm saying find what your gift is, find what you can bring to the table to help out and do that. But with finding your gift to see what you can bring to the table, you have to first get that spark within yourself going. And to do that, you have to have a revolution. You have to do it. It has to be a spark within you. And that's how revolutions start. They start with a spark in a single person. And then it grows. So if millions of people get that spark where they want to evolve, where they want to bring something that will help the world, and as Americans help America to the table, you'll get your revolution. And then your skill level, everyone's skill level, will be leveled up to where they can play the very hard game that we have officially been pushed into. That's all I got. That is all I got. I'm at 56 minutes and 38, 39, 40 seconds, whatever. This is the longest episode that I have done. Ever. But I feel it needed to be done. So if you listen to this all the way through, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I thank you for your support. I thank people before, but I thank you because I've seen the streams of old episodes on where people have streamed the show on Spotify and other streaming platforms. I appreciate it. I'm doing my best to be consistent, which is another thing that will be required in a revolution. You have to be consistent. So, yeah. If you want to reach out to the show, the best way to do that is usually via Twitter. I rarely check emails. I check Instagram from time to time, but I'm not an Instagram fan. I don't too much care for Instagram, which I really don't care for most of the social media platforms, if not all of the social media platforms. But it is what it is. The social media platform that I check the most is Twitter. So the Twitter handle is real TPES is the Twitter, at real TPES on Twitter. You can send a message. If there's anything you want to discuss or want me to discuss on the show, feel free to send that via Twitter. I'll take a look at it. I'll reply if I'm able to. If I'm not, stuff happens. I have a life outside of this. So, yeah. As for the show itself, if you want to listen to the show, it's available on Anchor Podcast, The Purple Elephant Show. You can go there via the website, thepurpleelephantshow.com. It will take you to the Anchor Podcast website where it is carried there. Other information is available on the podcast website there. Thank you again. I hope that this resonated with someone out there. If it didn't, I totally get it. Different strokes for different folks, So thank you again for listening. Thank you to those who watched me in my white t-shirt. And speaking of white t-shirt, don't forget. I just want to bring this up again for those who want to buy American white cotton t-shirts. Next Level, which it is a good t-shirt. I have no affiliation with them. This is just me doing my part to let you know Made in America cotton t-shirts exist. So, and the same thing with the socks. American made socks. I'm wearing some right now as I'm sitting in the floor too. And like I said, I like these. It was like $20 for 12. So really, really good thing. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day. I Hope that everyone stays happy, healthy, and in good spirits. And until next time, take care.